Thank the witnesses for their testimony. The chair will now recognize himself for 5 minutes. Mr. Latch, in your testimony you share that for every dollar invested in building code adoption, communities save $11 in cost related to natural disasters. You also say that communities that have adopted modern building codes are already saving an estimated $1.6 billion a year, with a projected savings of $132 billion through 2040. Can you highlight some other examples of how your research translates into practical applications that help save lives and taxpayers' dollars?
Thank you for that great question, sir. And yes, in addition to the items in the testimony, there are some other areas along similar hazards lines that we think are great examples of how mitigation activities will save long-term damage. One of them is in the space of tornado shelters or storm shelters. The NWERP agencies have worked together to advance storm shelter criteria over the last several decades and have developed criteria that provide life safety protection from high winds such as hurricanes and tornadoes. FEMA, through its grant programs, has invested over $1 billion in community and residential safe room programs over the last several decades, and it's led to any number of lives saved in critical areas, particularly tornado-prone areas. Likewise, FEMA and NIST have conducted post-hurricane and post-tornado investigations on the existing storm shelters to determine what improvements can be made and how to interpret those or how to translate those into the nation's standards, whether it's design standards or whether it's the nation's model building codes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let me get this over here. Mr. Averill, I own a trucking company, and I know how storms and tornadoes and earthquakes can do damages to our highways and our roads and pretty much all of our infrastructure. To what extent has NWERP or NEHRP incorporated transportation infrastructure into their hazard resilience plans?
Thank you. Yes. As I mentioned earlier, this notion of functional recovery really is a new concept for our building codes and voluntary consensus standards processes. And one of the big things that I think that really recognizes is the importance of all of our critical infrastructure, transportation included. If you have a hospital, for example, and the ambulance can't make it, or the staff can't get to the hospital, it's difficult for it to perform its critical healthcare function. We do research that looks at how to improve our critical infrastructure's performance when subject to both chronic as well as long-term acute hazards. So a good example of that is following the Anchorage earthquake in Alaska. We sent a team up there to look at damages. One of the findings there was to look at the performance of fiber-reinforced polymer systems. These are oftentimes used to reinforce concrete structures such as bridges and others needing reinforcing. But the question is, how do those weather and perform as a function of time? And we have an active research program now to put fiber-reinforced polymer systems out in the real world, measure how their performance degrades as a function of time.
Yeah. You know, I always think back, it probably hadn't been 5 years ago when Atlanta was virtually shut down from a quick snowstorm, where people were just stranded on all the interstates and virtually couldn't move for days. And do you engage with the U.S. DOT or the state DOTs?
We do. All of our NWERP and NEHRP working group level meetings are open to other agencies, and we've engaged with a number of agencies not named in the program as appropriate. Our concrete research program at NIST has worked specifically with DOT, most notably the Federal Highway Authority, and state DOTs to look at how to strengthen the performance of concrete as a function of time.
Yeah, okay, thank you. With that, I yield back.